Okay, everybody, so big day today. We're working with our core. So when we think about our core, most people just think about the superficial muscles to the front of your body, like the six-pack things that we see on social media all the time. So we're not really that concerned with those today. We're thinking about how to stabilize your full core. So if you take a look at the cylinder that I have there, you want to think about your core in that kind of way. So it's not just the front, it's the front, of course, the sides, and your back. And we're going to work on all three of those areas today and try to get your understanding of the way your core works, somehow established before the end of this little sequence. So we're going to work on the front, we're going to work on the sides, and we're going to work on your back. So trying to make your core stable, because if you don't have a stable core, if you can't brace through here, then you're going to compromise the rest of your body. Because if you think about it, it's really, what keeps you upright, for starters. It's what keeps you strong. It's what enables you to protect your spine. So vitally important that we can connect with our cores, can strengthen them, and we won't be stretching so much through the front core, but we will be doing a little stretching on the sides, and of course we'll be doing a little stretching on the back with a tiny little bit of back bending. So we're going to begin then, of course, with the more superficial ones, with the ones to the front. And I'm going to teach you how to do what I consider to be the best core stabilizing sort of move that I have in my little repertoire of looking after my core. So you're going to slip off whatever you're sitting on there on your mat, and you're going to lie down. So when you lie down on your mat, I want you to bend your knees. So you bend your knees so your feet are underneath your knees. And then I want you to push your lower back into the mat. So it's just a pelvic tilt that we're doing here. Then you release it, then you push it into the mat, and then you release it, and you push it into the mat. And I want you to keep it pushed right into the mat. So put your hands on your tummy, and you can feel. Now, it's not a massive engagement, but the two next things I'm going to ask you to do will really engage that core. So just keep your hands on your tummy there for a moment, and I want you to stretch your legs out, but keep your lower back on the mat. Then I want you to lift your legs up, and I want you to feel what's going on in your core. So you can feel it actually switch on. Put your hands to the sides. They're your oblique muscles, you can feel them. If you want to make this a little bit harder, you can cross your hands across your chest and lift your head up. And now I'm in what's called a corset hold. So remember the function of a corset from those who are old enough to remember them. They were to pull you in. And then just relax that. Don't stay in that position. So what I'm doing there, or what I was doing there, was using my core to keep myself in place. They were the only muscles that were working to lift my legs and lift my upper body up. So really good core exercise. But you need to do it in the little sequence I've given you. So tilting the lower back so it's fully implanted on the mat. And then lifting your legs and then lifting your upper body. You may be only able to hold it, for a second or 2 seconds in the beginning, but you get to the point where you can hold it for a length of time. The other one I'm going to show you is the reverse of that. So you're going to slip over onto your front, and you're going to put your elbows on the mat. So when you put your elbows on the mat, always think of the elbow underneath the shoulder, because you're going to want to be able to keep your shoulders in line and not put too much pressure on those. So you're going to put your elbows on the mat, you're going to interlink your fingers, and you're going to take your legs back, and then you're going to lift up. So you don't want to slump in your back at all. You want to keep the back up. You can even keep it up quite a bit in the beginning if your core is not strong enough. And then you're going to try and level it off. So we're in a plank, and you're going to hold this. So you're pulling your tummy in the whole time. Really pulling it in, getting it really strong in that position. You can lower your knees down. And then I'm going to teach you a pose that is a lovely counter posture for what we were just doing. For anything to do with your core, you need to take care of your back. So just in case when you were coming into your plank pose, you were allowing your lower back to bend too much. So we're going to come into what we call child's pose or balasana in yoga. And I think it's a really good pose for everybody to do on a regular basis. And this is how you do it. Your knees are hip width apart. Tops of your feet on the mat, and you take, most important part of this is you take your glutes back to your heels, and then you take your body forward and you drop your forehead down to the mat. If your forehead doesn't come to the mat, don't worry about that. What you don't want to do is take your forehead down and have your bum sticking up, because that's not stretching anything. So you take your sit bones back, and even if you only come as far as here, that's absolutely fine. Or you can build a little platform with your fists and rest your forehead like that. Or eventually you can stretch right out. And now you can feel, if you put your hand to your back, you can feel that you're stretching your back right out. So you are doing a counter move or a counter posture for what you were doing when you were lying on your or trying to work your tummy, just in case you were creating a weakness in your spine when you were doing that. Best exercise I can offer you for your stabilizing through your core, just those two. Now there are so many others that you can do. The ones I would not advise are full sit-ups. For most people, they just don't work. And they round through their spines, they don't do them properly. And even if you were to do any approach doing something like that, I would just come barely up. I've just seen too many injuries with full sit-ups if you don't do them properly. Some people can, but really if you're new to all of this, I certainly wouldn't be starting with those. I would start with those two, the corset hold and not the bridge, we were calling it there, that plank pose that we were just doing. So that's thinking of our front. And we also, in the corset hold, you're also working a little bit on these oblique muscles. But if we want to really work on those oblique muscles, you're going to lie to your side and you can come right down. So rest your side of your head on your elbow. Both of my legs are out straight and I'm going to lift both of them up. So the only muscles that are lifting my legs up are these oblique muscles here. So you can feel them. Drop down and lift up. Drop down and lift up. And you do repeats of those. With this hand then, if you feel like you're kind of falling over, put that hand there in front of you and then that'll keep you well balanced. Then you can kick your legs back and forwards. That gets a little more movement into it. And then you can take your lower arm out flat with the palm facing down. You can take this is my right hand, to the outside of your temple. And then you can bring your knees in and stretch them out. Bring them in and stretch them out. And bring them in and stretch them out. And if you want to take that a little bit further and a little more demanding on your oblique muscles, you can straighten out your arm, the legs are straight, and you come up and down and up and down. I should be keeping my legs together, up and down and up and down. And then of course you would lean over and do it on the other side. I would come up, I would have my legs set in this position and I would put my right hand to the mat and I would lift myself up and I would stretch. So I was strengthening through them and now I'm stretching my oblique muscles, so stretching the sides of my waist. I'm going to show you stretching movements for the obliques in a moment, but before I do that, I want to concentrate a little bit on how do you develop strength through your spine, that other, not the full spine, but just the part that is here around your core, the lower part of your back. So you're not going to be able to strengthen through the bones themselves, of course, they're just bones, they don't have anything, they're just a structure. But you're going to try and strengthen through what are called the erector spinae, and they're the muscles that run up and down the sides of your spine, supporting your spine. So you're going to lie down on your mat. So we're going to begin with just something very, very gentle for a little back bend first, just to make sure you're okay. So to come into this pose, My feet are hip width apart behind me, tops of my feet are on the mat. My fingers are spread on the mat and my elbows are stacked underneath my shoulders. And this is called, it's a cobra position from yoga, but it's really useful for warming up your lower back. So I'm going to press my feet into the mat, I'm going to lift my kneecaps and I'm going to tuck my tailbone under and I'm going to pull my shoulders back. Really, really simple movement. So you can feel that in your lower back. It should be safe for everybody to do. And I'm only doing this is not a back strengthening move. I'm just preparing my back to do the strength movement I'm going to do. You would always come down out of this, make a little pillow out of your hands, rest your cheek on your hands. I want you to bend your knees and rock your feet from side to side. And that's just loosening out your lower back. And I'm going to drop my feet down. And to come into this particular pose, then you want to isolate those rector spinae, the muscles of your back. And the way to do that is to, first of all, take your forehead to the mat or somewhere close to the mat. Take your hands behind you. So my palms are facing up and my shoulders are open. I'm going to lift my feet and then I'm going to lift my upper body. You don't need to come up much. Now you will feel that your glutes are switched on, but the muscles that are really working here are your back muscles. And they're really, really important, a vital part of your core stability. And then I'm going to fall back down. I'm going to make a pillow out of my arms again. I'm going to rest my cheek on my hands, bend my knees, and rock my feet from side to side. Always after something like that, I would push my hands into the mat, lift myself up, and push my sit bones back to my heels and drop my forehead to the mat. And again, your forehead doesn't have to come to the mat, but you're stretching out your back. And then come all the way up and let's sit back down again. So we're thinking about how to make core stability. As I've said, there are a million different exercises you can do for this, but the ones that I think are really, really important are just those basic ones. Thinking about your core as something much more than just the front of your body. I said to you that I don't really approve of sit-ups, and neither do I. But I can show you ways. If you think, oh gosh, I really need to do sit-ups, this is what I would advise that you do. You do them in separate parts. So you do the upper body in one section and you do the lower part of your body in the other. So I would lie back down. I would bend my knees, I would take my hands behind my head, but I'm only using my hands as a kind of, sort of little, platform for my head. And I keep my elbows out. So I'm not going to bring my elbows in and hurt my neck. I'm going to stay looking up at the ceiling. I'm going to push my lower back into the mat and I'm just going to come up. All I'm going to do is lift my shoulders off. And then I'm going to slowly lower. I'm going to inhale to lift up, exhale to lift up to strengthen my core, and then exhale to come down and breathe in the middle. So that is enough. You do not want to be sitting up the whole way. So that's enough for the front. If you do that with enough intention and slowly enough, then you're going to get that upper part. Then for the lower part, I'm just going to take my feet up. I'm going to, let's do this really simply first. So put my hands on my tummy and I'm going to lower my left leg down to the mat and then I'm going to slowly bring it up. I'm going to lower my right leg down and bring it up. And then I would continue that sequence. So that's working on your lower abs. So for most people, they will not be strong enough in their core to take both legs down and keep the lower back on the mat and lift them up. I would advise you just lift your bottom and you sit on your hands. And that's going to anchor your lower back onto the mat, and then you can move away really safely with the lowering and the raising of your legs. And I can feel that really working for me. Now, I don't actually need to sit on my hands. I can do it and keep the integrity of my spine without sitting on my hands. But if you do that slowly and repeatedly, and the reason I say do it slowly, if you use momentum for this, you're not going to get the benefit of it. There's one other thing that you can do from this position, and that is, again, working on your lower abs. I'm just going to place my hands on the mat, and I'm just going to lift up. Now, you're not lifting back, you're trying to lift your legs up to the ceiling. So it's a very little move. And you can really feel that working on your core. Lifting up and down, and lifting up and down. And then I would hold on behind my thighs. And this is a really, really good exercise that I'm going to show you next. So it's a mobility exercise for the spine, but it's also a really, really good core exercise. So I'm going to hold on behind my thighs, and I'm just going to rock myself forward and rock myself back. So trying not to plonk on, definitely not plonking onto your head. And when you come up, trying to keep your feet off the mat. So my feet are off the mat. I'm going to rock myself down and rock myself up. And then I come around to seated. So I promised you I'd show you how to stretch. So I've been showing you how to strengthen and stretch your back. We don't really want to stretch our core muscles too much. And there are ways of doing it, but I think the stretches we did with the hip flexor in the last little video will show you how to stretch your core, because the hip flexors are a major part of the core as well. We don't ignore them. They form, because of where they are in your body, they're a really important part of the core as well. So I'm going to show you how to stretch the sides of your waist, really simple things. So you're going to put your right hand to the mat and just lift your left arm up and over. Basic stretch. Both hips stay onto your bolster on your mat. Then you lift up and you stretch over to the other side. So you can do that repeatedly. So the raised arm, the elbow straight, the fingers are together, the palms facing down. And then you do the same on the other side. And then one last thing, and I think it's really useful. I'm going to show you how to just use your breath to strengthen your core. And this is an exercise or a breathing exercise that I use for yoga. And that is, we call it Kapalabhati, and it is belly, really forceful belly breathing. So you don't do this if you're pregnant, you don't do it if you've had abdominal surgery, and you certainly don't do it if you've just eaten a large meal, because you're going to get sick and get reflux and you're going to feel miserable. But if you want to do this on an empty tummy first thing in the morning, I could not recommend anything better for your waking up your metabolism, for strengthening through your deep core muscles. Really, really important. So I would rest my hands on my thighs and I would take a deep breath. And as I exhale, I forcefully pull my tummy in. So you can do it beginning with me by putting your hand on your tummy. So you're going to breathe in through your nose, always in and out through your nose if you can. So inhale, and then you can go. So you would do that maybe for a count of, we usually do it for a kind of slow count of 20, and then release it and take loads of breaths, and then do it again. And that breath work alone is a fantastic core work. And one of the other things I would recommend before we finish our core sequence, when you're standing, say, getting vegetables ready for dinner, or you're standing in a queue waiting for a coffee or something like that, pull your tummy in. Just pull it in. Nobody's going to notice. You're the only one who's going to be aware of it. And that's going to really help with your lower back, because one of the main things that we compromise when we don't have core strength is our lower back. And so many people have lower back issues. And if you can build a strong, stable core, then you really are doing your best for your lower back. And I don't mean just pulling your tummy in, like if you're trying to put into your jeans and they're too tight and you pull your tummy in. I'm talking about being able to stabilize through your core. So think about somebody's coming at you and they're trying to punch you in your tummy. You wouldn't pull your tummy in, you would try and brace it. And that's really what the kind of strength that we want to be able to switch on in our cores when we can. So really, really important connection between upper and lower body, the core. The hip flexors and the core are the two things that we've done in this video and the one just previous to it. We're going to begin the upper body section of our little sequence with our hands and our forearms. And again, we forget about them just like we forget about our feet. So see you next time when we'll be switching to the top parts of our bodies. And be well.